Hello and welcome to the Esports Meta. I'm your host for esports and video gaming of the past week. It's been a busy week with a lot happening. On today's episode, we're going to cover as much as we can. We're going to start with the Esports World Cup. We've got week 4, what kind of schedule we have on board, basically, and what we're going to be looking forward to watching being played. Also, today's episode is an exciting one because we're going to be talking about has a different play mode, the Great Push, and the grand finals just happened this past weekend. We'll be recapping that briefly. And finally, Overwatch, the big moments here. It's going to be starting in Esports World Cup, but we're also seeing a new playable character get play tested this weekend. Not quite in time for the competition, but there's going to be enough shakeups to talk about when it comes to the Esports World Cup Overwatch tournament. There's a lot. Subscribe button if you enjoy what we're doing here. Follow along, be a part of the conversation and the discussion. We'd love to hear from you guys and get what your thoughts are as gamers, because we're gamers too, and we love this stuff and we want to talk about it. But I'm gonna need some help right here on screen, on camera with me, and that help is gonna come in the form of Nicholas Layton. Let's bring him on in. Nick, can you hear me? Can I hear you?
I can hear you, man. What's going on?
Not too much, man. It's been a chaotic week. A lot of stuff, a lot of news, a lot of hype. Just in time for Tuesday, our episode here on Twitch and YouTube. So of the things we're talking about today, we're talking about Esports World Cup, recap of last week, and looking forward to this week. We're talking about the Overwatch tournament. We're talking about the new character. We're also talking about the Great Push. Of those things, which points would you want to highlight, or do you have something else we need to talk about before we even get started here, Nick?
No, I've actually really enjoyed the Overwatch tournament over the last week, but I have liked the WoW a little bit more. I think it's probably my favorite thing over the last week.
Dude, the Great Push was a lot of fun to watch, and it was nice to see how it's kind of changed up a little bit. It's a little bit of a change up from a speed run sort of competition into who could do the biggest key kind of competition. And it means different strategies. It honestly means a lot of different other things too. And we'll get into that as soon as we get to that topic. But first, we're going to start off with basically Marvel Rivals. Their playtest is starting today, right now, probably as we're speaking, and you can get a chance to play if you want to. But there is some luck involved, and we're going to run down what that means right now as well. In the first playtest, the alpha playtest, we were able to, what's it called? Sorry, give me 1 second real quick.
And the first playtest was pretty amazing. We got to highlight a couple of the characters and see the way the game is starting out for us and where it can go, right? Like, I was a little critical on it because I didn't really like a lot of the visuals. I thought a lot of the visuals were a little bit clunky. But with the new testing going on, like, we can see if that's actually going to be any different, right? Hey, you're muted now.
I muted myself again. You need to tell me, Nick. You need to
I
tell
did.
me. I'm trying to troubleshoot you, and I'm talking over here. Okay, we're better. We're good. Okay, we're talking about Marvel Rivals first. They had an alpha playtest about a month ago. A lot of people were closed invited. It was just based on invites, and that was kind of it. I played the game. I managed to get in. Luckily, it was very luck. No streamer luck, but just regular person luck. And I felt like the game was kind of floaty and kind of weird. There was mixed reactions. People were saying this was the Overwatch killer, and others were saying not so much. Nick, if I recall, you were skeptical on the game, but were there any sort of other thoughts, if I missed, for Marvel Rivals?
No, no. I was saying this before, right? Like I was pretty critical on Marvel Rivals just because it's Disney. And I feel like Disney needs to be vetted before I give them their money if I'm not bringing like a kid along, right? Like if it's for me, I need to look at it and make sure that they're just not trying to steal money from me. And so like that's the only thing. And like really all I have is like the amount of information that's on the screen and how visible and easy it is to read in the moment, right? And like Overwatch has worked on this recently too with like health pools and stuff like that. Being on screen at certain levels. So
right.
It's something that's like really important as far as these games are concerned, right?
Definitely with competitive games, you need to see what's going on. And hopefully they've taken that feedback into account because there's a lot of people saying a lot of things. And right now we get to see if that's true because right now you have a chance to get into the Marvel Rivals beta. It's happening literally as we speak. The initial invites have gone out. If you're a console player, which is what this playtest is being focused on, unfortunately, the window is closed for you to sign up. But otherwise, if you're a PC player, you still have a chance. And we just wanted to briefly let you guys know to check it out because this is a competitive game that's on the horizon that people are going to be talking about. And we want you guys to have the best information and be able to get in there and let us know what you think of the game as well. Not just us saying, hey, this is good, this is bad. We want to hear what you guys have to say too. So the way you can get into the Marvel's beta test right now is two specific ways. You have to be a PC user for both of them, unfortunately. The first way specifically is you're a PC user, you go to the Steam page and you request access under Join Marvel Rivals Playtest. Unfortunately, when I went to go do this myself earlier today, there wasn't an option. I couldn't find it, but maybe that's because I had luckily gotten a code to get into the alpha test 2 months ago. It might be different for you guys, but that's the first wave to test and check to see if you're going to get in. The second is through Twitch drops. Watching a streamer specifically doing drops for Marvel Rivals. They'll be giving out codes and keys through the Twitch drops. I believe it's happening randomly, and it's only going to be happening between the 25th and the 28th of July. So today, as of filming, it's July 23rd. The playtest is starting today with beta. So go sign up if you can on Steam. If you're a PC user, if you got console, you're on Xbox, PlayStation, that window is closed. But if you fortunately got into it, go play, let us know, let you know your thoughts, give your vibes on the new characters, Adam Warlock, Venom coming into the fray. Beyond that, take a look at your favorite streamers, see what they're doing. I believe on the 25th, it's going to start dropping and you might have a chance of earning or winning a key to get into this beta. It's a pretty quick news cycle thing there, Nick. Do you have any input you want to have in addition to what I've already kind of contributed?
No, have they given us like a release date for it yet? Do we know how long they're going to be doing like multiple betas? Are we just like leading into like Q4 for the season?
I don't believe so. I'm not sure if there is a estimated date of release anyway, but as far as what I played in the first one, it definitely wasn't close. I'm not sure about a fall release. I'll see if I'm in this one. I got lucky to get in this one again, but if there's any difference, but I'll be checking out some of my favorite streamers, seeing what kind of keys to drop, what they've been doing, etc. Sometimes you just gotta get into chat, man.
No, but like we'll see if like how much they're gonna change over the next little bit, or if they're just gonna try to just do like the hype beast and show us like what characters are gonna be playing and everything like that. I'm sure someone's bound to find like the busted champion in the whole entire thing, you know.
I'm just gonna jump in and say it already definitely happened. You see people breaking Black Panther with one-hit combos, kind of like just pouncing and diving in that way. You see a lot of people having trouble with Star-Lord because of the movement and flying in the air, or Iron Man, but Iron Man packed way less punch. So like I think it's already happened. It's going to continue to happen, of course, as the meta gets defined. But to your point about the hype beast, I think the hype marketing team really hit a stride in between the two beta tests, the play tests. The first one after I saw it happened was just a lot of videos about this is the next greatest game ever. And like, I'm really, truly skeptical about that. It has the potential, but it also feels like it could be a money grab for sure. So
it's not going to stop Overwatch. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
Welcome Paladin Squared. Like, just going to throw it out. Like, no, but like, the game would be fun. I've been watching more of it. It looks, and this is not, this will sound disrespectful, but I think this game was awesome. The first Transformers game that was like on the 360 had like a PvP.
Yes.
Side note, I got banned for finding a glitch in that game. But like, I'm not even joking. It one shot killed everybody. But that game was awesome. Super fun. It was a little floaty. But this one is like, if I were to be fair about it, it is shaping up to be a little bit more like that Transformers game than it is like Overwatch, personally. But
interesting.
You would have to play that other Transformers game. It seems more about like the characters than it does about the teamwork.
Kind of thing. Yeah, that makes sense. I think to that degree. And I did get to play that game. I think it was called War for Cybertron on the 360.
Yep, War for Cybertron. That game was.
It was dope. It was real good. But yeah, I can see what you're talking about, where Rivals is going to be more hero-centric rather than teamwork-centric, because even the roles feel a little bit different. And that might be the big distinguishing factor from Overwatch, which Overwatch has become that anchor point of arena shooters at this point, right? Like, so it's going to be hard to kind of get out of the shadow of it, compete. We're in the age of arena shooters as it is, and seeing all these different ones getting leaked and released, etc. But it's an excellent point to be made. But we want to move on. I guess I would like to move on to the next sort of stories, because we've got a lot to talk about today. What's up, my dude?
I'm just giggling. Let's move on.
Just giggling at me, man, all day.
Just giggling,
I gotta get
man.
Battle mode. I gotta get pumped. Okay. But anyway, we're going to move on to our next story here. First and foremost, we're going to be talking about the Great Push, the MDI Invitational Great Push tournament that happened this past weekend. In a little bit, we'll be getting to our Esports World Cup coverage, and then we'll be talking about Overwatch's new support character. So stay tuned and let us know your thoughts as we get there. All right, so first and foremost here, our topic next, Mythic Dungeon Invitational, the Great Push tournament. This is distinguishedly different from the MDI because it's not a speed run, who can get the best time through a dungeon. It's who can do the biggest key in a Mythic right now. And we've had, here's the format for the tournament. It's been a couple weeks of teams competing in group stages to get here. But this past weekend was the finals, the global finals, with a total prize pool of $200,000. 6 teams got to compete for it. And that's pretty much where we are specifically. We do bring us into our results, and we can kind of break down some numbers here thanks to Raider.io. But Echo retakes a dominant lead as winning this one. This is a bit of a revenge story because they were knocked out. They lost in the last MDI, kind of like stifling their recent run of success, and they had something to prove when they're coming back for this one. They came back with a vengeance, dominated, and ended up taking out first place here. Let's take a look real quick at the top 6 teams in order. Echo first place, Mandatory number 2, Missed Count, Predros Per Hour, Dreadnought Guild Team, and Madge are our top 6 competitors. In that order of winning success, you can see here, as far as a total story goes, that Echo takes first place with 129 total points for the number keys they were able to do, and they were able to finish it with the same points as Mandatory, but 2 minutes and 12 seconds faster than Mandatory overall. Let's take a look at their team comp here. going in. Sorry, in
5
the dungeon.
DPS.
It was a bit of a surprise because you're right. The MDI was very much. I'm getting some. All right. Cool. Just until everything's coming out the woodworks to mess with this broadcast and stuff, I wanted to take a look at the breakdown of comps here. There we go. This one finally loaded. For plus 21 Oldemon. I wanted to take a look at the comp here and what we mostly saw, and it was drastically different than the MDI because we saw a lot of teams take the risks for the 4 DPS 1 Demon Hunter tank composition we saw there. This tournament, it seemed the meta was Druid Healer, DK tank, Evoker with a Shadow Priest, and then maybe Mage, maybe Rogue, maybe a Warlock. Like, that part was one that was specifically tailored to the team, but the other 4 were pretty solid there. The meta is pretty straightforward. Season 4 is locked in for what's good as far as Dragonflight goes. Nick, what are your thoughts here, especially as we're looking forward to the next expansion and the shakeup today for the pre-patch and what that's going to mean? With this information of team comp, what do you see? What are you looking forward to?
So, like, one thing about this competition that I was a little, like, not really disappointed in, but, like, it's, I feel like it's, like, one of the things that it's missing is, like, style points. Like, I do care about the timing, but I really want, like, if something is, like, looks cool and is entertaining for the people watching, you should be rewarded for it. Like,
I don't know how flashy
like,
you can really, I don't know really how flashy you can get in a tournament, like, of WoW in general. I think
it could get riskier. Who knows?
You get riskier, but that was the cool thing about this tournament, is that you could get riskier because you could just reset the dungeon. Like, literally, not like based on time, you get deaths, of course, you just all back out, start the dungeon over again. The goal of the tournament is to do the biggest number key, not complete this one run in as fast as possible. So we did see a lot of risky plays. We did see a lot of, like, riskier sort of strategies in that mindset. And actually, I'll bring us over to here. We had a breakdown video talking about the highest keystone in Dragonflight, and it's Echo's return back to world first here. It kind of evidences their struggle and their push to really come back, and some of the strategies that they did here. So if you'd like, we can run through this real quick to show how flashy.
Let's run through it.
All right. Here we go.
Final MDI tournament of Dragonflight has just concluded, with Echo retaking their crown from mandatory and entering themselves into the record book with an unprecedented 10th victory. 3 hours into attempts on the highest key we've seen of the entire expansion, with mandatory and miscount hot on their heels, Echo is finally able to break through and crush a 23 Azure Vault to put themselves in sole lead of the competition and would hold that advantage to the end. Before we break down the specific pulls in the key, it's important to mention in general what makes the key so difficult. Throughout most of Cup play, and also during the Global Finals, most of the keys the players were competing in were only doable on that 21 level. A select few were doable on 22, but Azure Vault was the standout key that was possible only on 23 Fortified. Every single key level compounds an extra 10% damage and health on top of the previous key, so by the time you get to that 23 key level, mobs in the dungeon have a whopping 714% increased damage and health. This essentially means nearly every mistake, a missed kick, a tank buster, even accidentally stepping into a void zone, can result in an early death. In order to time this.
So real quick, some of the things to note out here too, they've already mentioned that Echo took 3 hours of pulls and tries on this key to complete it successful. So it's not just a one and done race of, like, speed run this stuff. It is a whole weekend sort of activity event where they had to just complete it. And they're evidencing that this one is the hardest dungeon the easiest dungeon to do the hardest key on in Dragonflight. And it's even at the plus 23, the scaling is absurd, so where tanks will just die, healers will just not be able to keep up or heal, which might be another reason for the 3 DPS 1 healer moniker composition, and also why you have a druid where the Swiftmen with the Nature's Grasp and with the HOTS always sort of rolling to just kind of like constantly top up and help the Demon Hunter situation there. With that information, Nick, I want to keep rolling, but would you like to add anything before I do?
No. We can keep rolling, bro.
All right, great. So now I believe I'm going to skip ahead to where they're going to break down some of these specific polls and some of the crazier stuff that they're doing. So right off the bat, they're going to talk about how they're basically doing huge pulls throughout the dungeon because that's the only way you can complete a level 23 key. It's just so much mobs, so much health, so much specific meticulous management that you just need to go and do. So skipping ahead, let's go to
More time for the rest of the key. In a 23, every pull has to be that big in order to make it timeable. They get in combat with a tree and a bunch of conjured lashers from the beginning of the key, then jump down to Laymore's room, snapping the trash along with them. These lashers are incredibly dangerous to the group. If one cast of Mystic Vapors goes off, the damage from one stack of that debuff alone could wipe the group. In order to not wipe the group, use to perfectly execute an AoE stopper station for nearly a minute to prevent death. This is also the main point of the key where Raging Affix comes into effect. At 30% HP, mobs in the dungeon become unable to be CC'd, preventing the AoE CC rotation from working. In order for the pull to work correctly, all of the lashers need to be pushed simultaneously into that raging range, so the evoker can Oppressing Roar to remove the enrage effect from all of the mobs at the same time.
So first, this is one of the crazy things because this seems like a very dull pull. It's just large and you have to AoE down, but because of the raging effect, when they hit a certain percentage, they do more damage. And you don't want to have them up for very long. So like, rather than single targeting one and killing them at a time, they still want to AoE them down. They're deciding to cross that raging threshold to activate at the same time, and then and this is the important reason why you need an evoker, is to have him use Oppressing Roar, which is a AoE soothe and remove the raging effect on everybody at the same time. Therefore, the tank does not die. And that's the big thing with this specific part of the pull. Moving on.
So the team can go back to using their AoE stops. Of the 20 plus attempts Echo spent on this key, more than half of them were spent figuring out how to do this first pull. After a clean Laymore and a standard Arcane Fury pull afterwards, Echo heads up to their second premier pull that makes the key timeable, a massive snap pull in the double ring section of the dungeon. Team sets up on the inner.
So real quick here too, if you heard, they did 20 plus attempts at the first pull. They had to reset 20 times just to get that one right and figure that out. And then we're looking at here specifically the next little funnery they're doing. They have the tank drop down to the second ring here, gather all the groups, and then use I can't remember, I think it's the attuned stone item that just hurts you to another member of your party. So it TPs them back up to the top ring, and they basically pull 6 packs to the boss, I believe.
Side of the upper level while now drops down to the lower ring. After gathering aggro on the patrol, 2 sets of arcane constructs and yet another pack on top of that now activates his evoker's Wernstone, teleporting himself upstairs to the waiting team. This is an ingenious way to not only stack the 4 packs up, which are usually quite spread out, but also prevents any potential for teammate deaths during the gather to an errant aggro pull or a frontal from one of the constructs. After snapping, the pull is made larger still by pulling the waiting unstable curator pack right by where now snaps the mobs up. The resulting pull is actually quite safe once gathered. Stops can be used almost exclusively on Waking Banecast from the Arcane Elementals. The major danger in the pull comes from either getting slept from those elementals, or if a keeper gets their Icy Binding cast off, preventing players from moving out of the swirly soup this pull emanates. Now also has the option to simply jump away from the pull if he's ever in danger.
Alright.
Echo's next pull is...
At this point, the other pulls are going to be kind of equally interesting, but I want to jump us ahead to the last boss and whatnot, because that's the one where he gets super interesting. All right.
Situate themselves on top of a book, which removes the need to dodge frog jumps and breaker shoulder slams and keeps the massive pack of trash nicely stacked for AoE. This does, however, put a massive amount of pressure on the tank, as now expertly dips and dives around the edge of the enemies, making sure he doesn't take too much unnecessary damage. Echo's also allocated their third Bloodlust to this pull, expertly timing it out so that their fourth and final press will come back off cooldown when they need it for the final encounter of the dungeon. With Trash complete, only 2 bosses remain between Echo and the highest, fastest key done in Dragonflight. Unfortunately, the Shadow Meld skip goes poorly, costing the team a little bit of time, but more importantly, costing now his cheat death effects. But, because of the efficiency of their pulls and that skipped intermission on Azure Blade, Echo have more than enough time left to complete the dungeon. Talash Greywing swiftly falls without major incident, and the team find themselves standing in front of the final domino left to fall. Umbral Skull is not a long boss by any means, but it has some of the hardest hitting abilities in the dungeon. A single Dragon Strike can instantly bring a tank from 100 to 0, and the crystal spawns at 25% increments can instantly wipe an ill-prepared team. No strangers to playing in the moment, Echo expertly deal with the first set of crystals. And the second, and finally the third, before defeating the boss, timing the key, and putting themselves in the outright lead. After falling in the final stages of Season 3's MDI, Echo have come back energized, hungrier than ever, accepted the gauntlet thrown down by Mandatory and other emerging talents in the WoW esports scene, and shown them all why they are the winningest team in WoW esports history. A decisive end.
All right. So yeah, man.
I watched it. I watched it.
Does that speak to that little bit of like cool antics and whatnot that you're talking about that you'd want to see from a competition like this?
No, like a little bit, but not as much, right? It's really interesting though, because like when I was watching it, I did have the thought that like if this was like a world first race of some sort, Echo would have had that dungeon reset for standing on that book. That is not intended like at all to do that part of the dungeon, right? So that's interesting. But I think it's like it felt like too meticulously curated, like the whole experience. Like I like it, like being a person who tends to like things that are a little bit more Excel spreadsheet, right? Like this, it feels very Excel spreadsheet when I was watching it, and that's what I meant. Just like give a little bit more like flair into it, and I'm not saying like it has to really be too crazy, but that's kind of like what I'm like.
I can kind of hear your point. This is a marathon sort of esport version of WoW dungeons rather than the sprinting. And like, this was a 3 hours worth of attempts on this one key in this one dungeon. And even at the end of it, you saw that the tank messed up his pull and had to die. And then they just like revived him. They rezzed him basically, and they tried again. So like they had 20 attempts up until the first pull to get it right, figure that one out. And then I'm not sure how many more attempts after that, but like it's 3 hours worth of doing it. So it's more of a marathon sort of event than it is a sprint. And it's really just about who can do the highest key the fastest. And the fastest part kind of doesn't matter if you can do it, more than like other people basically.
Maybe instead of like, adding style points or something like that, maybe add points for using, classes that aren't commonly used throughout the, like if you're in the tournament and you brought like 3 Ellie shamans, a resto shaman, and a warrior tank, brats, like give them points. Like if they were able to do like stay on the same ground as everybody else, that would be cool. Like kind of thing.
But would it be doable? Because that's another thing that happens in WoW, especially modern WoW. That like doability. It's like there's things that are meta for a reason. You want to use the best tool for the job. And when you get to something as specific and nuanced as a plus 23, you're going to need the specific nuanced tools of it. But it's interesting. That's a good point as far as like, I wonder if they could objectively rate each class like on a scale, a difficulty scale. So you get bonus points for bringing a class and like not really a deficit, maybe a deficit. Like if everyone's running demon hunters because they're just unkillable gods. And like we're seeing how that sentiment is changing with the war within and how that's going to look when they start doing like a world race to world first and MDIs there. But as of right now, you can't compete with a demon hunter tank. There's no questions. The double chains, the double sigils in general, and then they don't die. cheat deaths, the high mobility, like, so like, do we give them a -5? Like, you're starting at a -5 points, -2 points. Like, that could be an interesting way to then balance out something like this, where it's like, if you use lesser meta classes that's based on
I got an
play
easy
rankings
solution.
or something. What's that?
Ban the hero classes. Like, I know I don't like calling them hero classes, but like death knights are like, and like they're probably not as bad as they used to be, but like they were essentially like enhanced paladins on crack at one point, and they had to be chopped down a little bit. But demon hunters are warriors on steroids. Like, they are 100% warriors on steroids. Like, they survive a lot, they deal a lot of damage, they have they like a little bit of rogue in them. Like, it's kind of ridiculous.
I think I don't necessarily agree with that. I do difference, but I'm not going to touch on that. I think the easier solution would just be balance, right? And like asking Blizzard to balance correctly. And I know balance is a sentiment thing just as much as it's a numbers thing. Is it player feels versus, this and that? But like part of that balance is also about kit. And then maybe to your point, I don't know about banning those classes. I don't necessarily agree with that.
It's I mean, yeah, it's a joke,
There's no reason they should have double sigils. And talking about like when DKs were like the most broken, all my classic Kata bros out there playing, you know what we're talking about, where they're just the DKs are just the tank right now. So like, does it change
there was
over
a time when DKs were just you could just be a caster. You didn't even have to have a weapon. You could just run at people. You just be able to run people down. Like, they make these classes pretty unhinged, man. Like, having like an AoE tranquilize is kind of ridiculous. Hunter's still got that trank shot though, right? But yeah, no, it's it's design, it's balance, but as I was saying before, like a lot of these experiences, like for the higher end players, I think they're a little too meticulously like curated to the point where like they put something in and then there's only one answer, which is why we see, Druid and Demon Hunter, right? Like,
right. That might be the best point. Even Evoker, like having the specific, because they bring so much utility. The one answer is that, and like to your point, and to kind of just say it in a different way and try to take credit for it because it's now my point.
Go ahead, dude. You can have it.
Oh, Blizzard and the WoW team just needs to look at these kits. They need to look at the design and like you said, create more options, but not create homogenized options. Cause I think that's something that happened around the time when Kata, during retail Kata launched, that they gave every healer class an AoE heal, a single target heal, a big single target heal, a hot, like not necessarily doing that where everybody has everything, but providing multiple options to solve the problem. And that could mean speed running through, like using utility speed, using Soothe or some sort. I think Soothe might be the best option for that. But of course, yeah, when you have an AoE Soothe that soothes everything at once, if you can make that work, it's going to be better, of course, because it does multiple things at once. But then again, that Priest has a specific Soothe that they missed it, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, like, Blizzard's never been great about like the homogenization or anything like that, right?
But it's always
like
too far one way or the other way. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, like no, it's all good. The biggest problem that WoW rating has just in general, WoW rating, mythic dungeon keys and stuff like that, is buffs that classes bring. Like, they're legitimately stupid. They're legitimately nonsense. And that's why you see like cookie cutter situations. Like, we got to bring heroism. No matter what, we need a person with heroism.
Heroism's always been just too broken, where it's like that much haste and whatnot. But
it's just buffs in general.
They had to give the alliance it too. But
yeah,
when you start talking about buffs, you're literally talking about then buffs, how they're not homogenizing it, but they're basically giving every class every spec of buff, so that you have to at least bring one. And like, I can understand the sentiment around it, but I don't know if that's the solve to the problem, right? That's very classic Blizzard, where it's like they solve it in the way that sort of circumvents the thing. But yeah,
I just think they're a band-aid on class onto classes, like for the most part. Like like you give them a buff that does something, and it just becomes like either a click or, you know, most of the time they're not procs because people aren't going to take too many procs except for like fire mages. But like, you know, they're suffering. You know, they don't have enough DPS. Well, you know, you need heroism to get over this. Like that's inherent, like that, and they build fights for these situations, right? Like they're not building any fight to say like no one's going to go in here without heroism. Everybody's going in here with heroism. So they're building a fight also according to having heroism, which is like, it's kind of like, that's also in that circle, right? Because we have heroism, you have to make the things more like stronger, and you have to make the game a little bit different just because everybody's going to have heroism, or everybody's going to have this, or everybody's going to have that. Like,
right. Yeah, no, I get the point what you're making. I just want to kind of point out, add to it that heroism it almost feels like an exception because it's so being good. Like it's always been good. It's always been a huge advantage for one faction until they brought it over to the Alliance. I can't remember when they did that. Was that it was technically in BC because Shamans got brought over, but but
Shamans and DK and Paladins got brought over for BC, and then I think what was it? It was basically when Mages got it, right? I think that was that Kata or was that Wrath? I think it was Kata.
I think it was Kata. I don't quite remember totally, but like that's why I'm saying the exception. Heroism in Bloodlust is an exception because it's just so flippin' good since day one, and it's like they can't change it, or they didn't want to change it, or you know. So like, I get your point, and I think it's just like one of those things that's like way off the chart, whereas all the other abilities and like cooldowns kind of sit a lot lower in that mean mode, medium thing, whatever math term it is. So it's a lot, dude. I do like to see them change and how their philosophy has been raiding. The last Race the World First was probably one of the best ever. That raid was awesome to watch. It was incredible, and the design really showed that they were considerate of those factors and the challenges that would arise to solve those problems as they raced the world first.
Yeah, it was a great one. I do love the world first, especially Max going crazy with his extra position, the captain. Like,
shout out to Maximilian.
Capitan.
El Capitan, calling the shots. But, you know, we have to make another call here, and we have to move on to another topic. I'm looking forward, of course, to the next Race to World First. The Great Push was a lot of fun to watch. It's a much different vibe and a marathon sense of WoW versus the sprinting MDI style, and I love to see that kind of competition take a new form, basically, for that. But unless you have anything to add, let's move on to Esports World Cup, Nick.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get Overwatch on the way, right?
All right, we're going to start off by doing a little bit of recap from the club championship points, a little bit of update on points. We're not seeing a huge difference from last week. Team Falcons on top with 2,950 points. Team Liquid 1,150, of which I believe has bumped them up a place or two. Anadis coming up. Gaming, also one of the names that were low on the list, now in the top five. So exciting to see how the championship is moving. Let's take a deeper look at the points. Team Falcons have pulled away with 2 golds, 1 silver, 1 bronze. Team Liquid 1 silver and 2 bronze. And Natus only having 1 gold and still placing in third here. So a lot of competitions left, a lot of time to make the moves, and it doesn't seem to take a lot to get the points here.
Yeah, it doesn't, but dude, it looks like Team Falcons is literally just going to run away with it, man. They're in so many competitions, like in general.
Dude, right. And like with that too, within the last week or 2 weeks, we've seen quite a few organizations pick up other teams since, and maybe because they're catching on to this prize pool money, to this competition of the clubs here, making it feel worth it, making it, you know, so it's super interesting to see that happening and like the points here. So just a quick update here. Nick, who are you rooting for? Long shot. We've got another 5-6 weeks to go. You still saying Team Falcons going to be the standout winner of the pack the entire time?
Honestly, I could not tell you, but I do want Team Liquid to win. That would be really, really cool if we can get some I hope this is if they do. Whoever wins, you better make some like world champion shirts afterwards. If you don't already have them to like donate if you lost. So I'd be pretty excited to get like a world esports, top club shirt or something from Team Liquid. It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome to see. I do agree that Team Falcons might have a runaway head start currently, but I'd like to see Team Liquid. I think Gaming Gladiators are going to be a little bit of a sleeper with the next few teams. I think they're going to be able to score at some points coming up, but you do have to place in the top 3 to get points here. And that's going to be the biggest challenge to kind of take a look at and see. It's a lot coming. It's very exciting, and we're going to keep watching. So watch along with us and let us know which organization you're rooting for to dominate the championship here. From there, let's move into last week's recap of games here in the Esports World Cup. And we're going to start off with Dota, actually. Going from the top list here all the way back into the grand finals winner of Dota. Gaming Gladiators won $1.5 million as the standout finalist first place here with Dota with the Riyadh. I'm from New Jersey
Riyadh?
and I can't say that word. It's Riyadh. And I want to say Riyadh.
Yeah.
Riyadh. It's Riyadh. The Riyadh Masters, they come away with first place. Big congratulations. Some sighs of relief it looks like here on this screenshot. Some excitement holding up that trophy. But let's take a look overall here. They ended up beating out Team Liquid to take first place in the finals. Team Falcons also having some representation here, walking away with $600,000. And like, granted, this is Dota. We're talking about huge prize pools and prize matching of that prize pools. But this is a lot of money for 5 dudes, 6 dudes to walk away with, is it not?
It's a good amount of money. It's pretty solid. Even the coach gets included. He gets $100,000. Just kidding. But this goes to the org, right? Like it goes to the team, it goes to the org, and I don't know how they split it up. Who knows?
I think that's contract dependent when it comes to how they split it. But yeah, it really comes down to how the org and the players have negotiated those things, and a lot of those are kept under hush, lock, and key.
Yeah, people just need to start being like mercenaries and free agents for some of these game modes. Become like the best PUBG player and wait for the worlds or the Olympics to come around and be like, look, I'll play on anybody's team. Gotta pay
that's that's interesting. We talked about that with Overwatch when it came to stage 2, I believe, when they're be able to pick up players because the points are attached to the players. And we're seeing a lot of interesting acquisitions and roster changes just in time for their tournament this week. But let's finish up taking a look at the bracket here, the playoffs. That's just the competition. I want to see the bracket. I don't think we're going to get a chance to really see it, but let's take a look at the playoffs, how it looked. It wrapped up just recently on the 20th, this past weekend, about 3 days ago. And that's where you saw, is it? I'm all out of sorts, man. I cannot, for the life of me, yes, the Sunday.
It's fine.
Yeah.
What you need to know that you didn't realize was that like a lot of these tournaments, right? The semifinals and the finals are the exact same game. You just get to watch an extended version of the semifinals.
Right. Okay. And here's the upper rack.
There it is.
So that's the thing with Dota 2. They were doing a double elimination while a lot of the other tournaments are only doing single elimination stuff. So we're seeing here's the semifinals playoffs. 2-0 by Gaming over Team Liquid, and then we bring it over into the grand finals, and it's that repeat, right? In the lower bracket round, Team Liquid beats out Team Falcons. Team Falcons makes a bit of a push, beating out 2 teams, but then losing on that Sunday, Team Liquid in the lower bracket final. So I guess I'm going to keep it pretty brief. I was looking for the brackets here, couldn't find them, but let's move into our other game. And that would be our CSGO match. And congratulations to first place Natus Vincer, winning $400K. Nick, you're snickering a little bit. What do you see?
Don't
what
worry
do you
about
think,
it,
man?
No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's like that's a later conversation. But no, let's get back into it. Sorry.
All right, so we got CS:GO here. We're gonna go into the standings and big congratulations to Natus. Overall, Natus taking away $400,000 for first place and 1,000 club points. That's why we saw them on the leaderboard earlier. G2 pulling out second place. Virtus, Moose, FaZe Clan making some representation in the tied for fifth place. What is it, fifth to eighth? Yeah, place. But walking away with 40 grand for their participation in this tournament. Again, pretty straightforward. I don't think we're going to find any brackets here. Any teams that you're kind of surprised to see, Nick, on the leaderboard here, the finals? FaZe Clan?
FaZe Clan.
Make it this far.
Yeah, bro, to me, like, my impression of the FaZe Clan is like, it's like a multi-level marketing scheme, but for like younger kids. Like, that's, but anyway, no hate.
It's a lifestyle brand for sure. It's a lifestyle brand, and the FaZe Clan's going to come after you for sure.
No hate, bro. No hate. No hate. Get the bag, dude. But no, like, I don't know anything about like FaZe Clan. I know out of game stuff. So like that's the like so that's my impression of them. So I'm a little surprised, but again, I don't know anything about the like them inside of each game, you know?
Yeah, but that's actually a great point because they do a lot more outside of game, it sounds like, feels like, than they do in game. I know with Valorant there's a lot of in-game representation and news, but otherwise I think it's kind of quiet. So I'm too also surprised that they're placing top 8 in the World Cup basically for CS2. But
well, good job, G2. Yeah, like I like what G2 also wins. Is one of my favorite European teams, like in general. So
yeah, and I think that's what these tournaments are going to do a great job of, exposing these organizations to players and audience members who don't normally watch the game they're known for. Kind of just being able to spread the wealth a little bit, kind of appreciate gamers for gaming here. And that's just pretty much it for week 3 here. We saw, like we said, a lot of Dota, a lot of Counter-Strike. They both wrapped up in this past week. PUBG Mobile World Cup started. It has not completed. It will be moving on shortly. We'll cover that next week when we do the recap for the scores here. Anything to like sort of note or add as I transition us onto looking forward into week 4 of the Esports World Cup, Nick?
No, Counter-Strike was fun. I didn't watch PUBG, but you know, I only caught like a little bit of the Dota finals just because I was gonna look at it because it's the finals. But it was like, it's exciting. Like watching Dota stuff, if you can hear like fans at all, is like a lot more would be like better, because they go like a little bit crazy. But
yeah,
it's still pretty good. Like overall, like the actual gameplay and stuff. Even if you're not like, if you're a League person, you're gonna be able to follow it for the most part a little bit better than like a person who's not a Dota or League person. So you get to see some things, and branching out is always good for learning, regardless of the game.
And you're right. Dota fans are probably some of the loudest and best fans of video games in the world. And it kind of hurts a little bit to say something like that, but like evidence is definitely there. So if they have more broadcast inclusion where you can hear them and see them, it's always appreciated because it really brings the energy to esports for other games. Rising tide raises all ships kind of mentality for sure.
Yeah, Counter-Strike and Dota have the spiciest fans. Like overall, like I kind of wish I was one of their players. I'm not, but like I play your games. I'm not one of your players though. Wish.
The whole topic of spicy fans is a rabbit hole I can't really go into right now with you, but it's one of those fun conversations to have. And if you're out there, if you're watching this and you think, hey, this is true or this is not true, let us know yourself. Are Dota and Counter-Strike the spiciest fans out there? Are they the loudest audience? Are they the ones who are going to shit talk the most and the best? Or is it a different game? Let us know. All right, moving into week 4 here. And then after we kind of cover the games to expect in week 4, we're going to get into Overwatch tournament breakdown, as well as the new Overwatch support character. So we're going to be continuing out with PUBG Mobile World Cup. They're going to be completing their survival stage, which I think is just another way of calling their upper bracket or their knockout stage. We've got Women's International here coming in for Mobile Legends, and then we're seeing Overwatch 2 also start. That's all starting tomorrow, Wednesday, July. Well, today's July 23rd, but it is Tuesday.
Yeah,
why does it say Wednesday here? Is it just a time difference? It's probably the time difference.
there you go.
Actually,
you figured out. you figured out the globe.
Thank you. I'll be here for the next hour. No, yeah, it just
Look,
threw
what
me
time is
because
it in China?
I don't know, man. I'm not a clock. But anyway, we've got these games starting this week. PUBG Mobile continuing. I don't know entirely what they're in survival stage. And then they go to main
Sounds like
tournament.
knockouts.
So these are knockouts. This is just preliminary, which is also crazy to me. That's another game where they're doing multiple rounds. I didn't realize PUBG Mobile was that big, or maybe they're just pushing it for that mobile aspect of it. But anyway, these are the games starting this week, and this is what we're expecting to happen throughout the rest of this week. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Anywhere where you're in the world, tune in, check out the playoffs for Overwatch, check out the playoff semifinals for Mobile Legends, and then check out the rest of the knockout round for PUBG Mobile. All right, Nick, are you going to be taking a look at anything specific with these games? Are you looking out for... Are you going to dive in and take a look at Mobile Legends? Because I know you and I both shy away from the mobile games because it's hard to say you're competitive on a phone.
Nah, man, I'm a PC gamer. Any game you play with your thumbs, you're done. You're cooked. like you're cooked. It's over.
I don't know if that's a hot take because you're including console players on that one, which you might not
I know
be
what
wrong
I know exactly what I said.
You might not be wrong after our expose last week about auto aim on controllers with Apex.
You mean
Legends.
The cheaters?
Yeah.
Like I'm playing.
Exactly.
It's a little too much fun.
All right. I would say, speaking of fun, but I know how hot take of Overwatch it is. People love it. People hate it. It's a very big thing. We're going to move into that and the tournament. We're going to be breaking down the overall format for the game, as well as the teams that are playing and what to look out for as it starts later today into tomorrow, depending on where you are and when you're watching. So first and foremost, Overwatch is competing, obviously, in the Esports World Cup. The format is going to start with 4 groups of 4 in a Swiss best-of-5 matches. Everybody's going to play everybody in their group, and the person who places last gets kicked out. Top 3 of each group move on. First place gets a bye to the quarterfinals, and then the teams who place second get to pick who they're playing in the start of the bracket round. That's when the draft bracket starts, and then the brackets are all going to be a single elimination best of 7 tournament overall, and that's where you start seeing it a little bit more condensed and easy. Lastly, Nick, I know you specifically are going to like this bit of information. We're seeing hero bans for the first time in a tournament this size on this scale for Overwatch, and the way it's going to work is that each team gets to pick 1 ban per role per map. The loser picks the order of who gets to pick first. So if I'm a team and you're a team, Nick, I just lost. I'm going to pick Lucio, and then it would be your turn to pick for this map. So let's say you'd have to pick a DPS or a tank. You couldn't pick another support character to ban, and you only get 1 pick. The final caveat to that is, since I picked Lucio here in this map, I can't pick Lucio again for another map. You could pick Lucio as long as another support character isn't picked at the same time. But, you know, that's where the limitations come from in this one. Did that make sense? Was that fairly clear?
Yeah. No, it was clear. It sounds great. I've never thought that this game needed bans. Never. I've never thought it in the last 5 years. I've never thought that this game ever needed bans.
I'm detecting a hint of sarcasm, Nick, but you know, some of the internet might disagree with you, because I know there's been a ton of people screaming, kicking and screaming to the length of Overwatch about getting bans in this game. They did see a not ban system, pick ban system happen in Overwatch League, which we're not going to get into, not going to pick, but you know, I think the pick system, the ban system here, I don't know if it's ultimately what competitive Overwatch needs, but it is going to be an interesting stage to see this being played on because the rule set's in and it's going to make a huge difference on the results of the game for sure.
The viewability of the game, right? Just in general, like you're not going to see the same thing over and over again throughout the tournament. So if you're watching like a match set between like two teams, you're only going to see Lucio on one map for one team, and then you'll see it in another one, right? So like if they have 5 games, you're seeing one support twice. That's it. So
that's always, that's kind of interesting for sure. Like we're going to hopefully see stuff like that. But generally speaking, because you only get to pick one hero once, and how a lot of teams have kind of fallen into specific roles, I guess region specific, like styles. APAC region loves their dive, loves the big flashy, quick kind of stuff. And we saw that really with DreamHack. Whereas like you have more of a brawl coming out of EU and North America, you're going to want to target that Lucio, but then the next one, are you going to target the Rhine? Then they're just going to switch to Junker Queen or Ram and do a Ram brawl, right? If you target the Winston, and they're going to just switch into Doom or Wrecking Ball. It does create more of a variety, of course, but I don't know how much forced variety it will because you're really only getting one character per map kind of thing.
So, I think it takes away from the characters. Like the banning itself is not really for the characters. It's about for the maps themselves and which team comps are good for certain maps. So like you can ban out like certain characters that will lessen a certain comp on a map that it excels at. And if that team excels at that, you're rewarded for doing your homework against who you're playing against, right? Other than that, like what are your people like?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. It's an interesting point. You're right there. And maybe we'll have to see because, there's a lot of speculations here. This is the first major tournament on this scale that we're seeing the pick ban implemented, and it's implemented in such a specific way comparative to other games. But, that's what we're going to be watching for. That's what we're going to be looking out for. And so let's get into the specific teams, and then maybe we can talk about...
One more thing. Ahead. I wanted to... when you're picking the characters, right? So you do the bans, right? And then like the other team picks all 5, or do they just pick one and then I pick one? Or is it 1 and 2 and then 2 and then 1? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's not batched all at the front end. It's every round you stop and then you go, okay. Same with like the map picks. Loser picks map and then loser picks who bans first. So then that's, so
it's not changing pick order then, right?
Correct.
So everybody's still picking at like they're picking all their characters at the same time.
So it's
like
not
after the ban, like the normal Overwatch, you get in, everybody picks their characters after the map's been chosen and after the ban has gone through.
Yes, everyone. Oh, I understand what you're saying. You're not talking about the characters. People get to pick the champions still after the bans occur, so they can change the comps. And like I said, if they want to ban a Winston because my team is good at dive, then I can go in and I can then pick Doomfist or Ball, and maybe as a defensive strategy, I can then plan to expect Winston or Doomfist or Wrecking Ball rather than the Winston. So it's one less variable that I have to account for in the dive, but like, is it going to be enough to like, are the players, maybe it's going to throw off specialty niche players, like, like that one trick Lucio guy, maybe. And like, that's the thing we're going to see here with these teams. And it might come down to specialities. It might come down to region specific sort of tendencies and trends. It might come down to who's the flex god here. And I think that's what we're going to talk about and look at when we go into the specific teams right here, right now for this Overwatch tournament. We're going to start by breaking down the 4 teams in each 4 groups. And as we go through this, we'll kind of touch on the bans. Who do you think, what style, what we've seen from them? What do you think is the strongest team? What do you think is the strongest group as we move on through this? So let us know what you think your favorite team, strongest team for this tournament expectation is, and we'll go from there. So Group A already seems a little bit heavy. We got Toronto Defiant, arguably the best in North America, which isn't saying much from recent performances. We've got Crazy Raccoon, Number one, just in general, they've been dominating everything. When in a world where Team Falcons was expected to be the it character, Crazy Raccoon comes in and says, "I'm him." Gaming Gladiators, an organization that we've seen in other games. I believe they bought into this one, and Rock Esports, all competing here in Group A. What is your favorite? Which one do you want to see win? Who do you think is going to get knocked out? Because the fourth place gets knocked out of group.
Rock Esports.
ROK? ROC? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
ROC. Get out of here, Jay-Z. We don't need you. Okay? Like, no,
yeah.
they're gone. They would be my pick. And like, they got Froky.
They're a pretty Brazilian heavy team, so I think they got in through Faceit League points. So it's a big accomplishment to do that just as is, but I don't know if they have the sustainable power on that world stage here. So I probably would agree with you. Otherwise, what was the other team here? Where is it?
No, there's only 4 teams, bro. Toronto Defiant, Crazy Raccoons, Gaming Gladiators, and Rock, bro.
I was completely spacing out there, man. There's so many words. Gaming, I believe, a different team, but you can see they brought an FD God, and that's another like Lucio one trick. Maybe they pivot onto Brig in the similar style. Naga and I think Zodiel was also Overwatch League, but like I feel like this team equally is going to struggle. Who knows? They can possibly upset Toronto. Toronto has something to prove, but then also not. Are they the one trick NA kind of things? Not really doing strong. This EU team seems to need to prove itself in any sustainable way. They have some experience, but we'll see. I do feel like it's a toss up between Gaming and ROC Esports here. Kind of a lock for Toronto or Crazy. So maybe the strategy here is don't be last. Basically.
Yeah, that's it, right? Run faster than the guy behind you. It's really all it is.
100%, man. Crazy Raccoons, as long as they don't shit the bed, they're already expected to be win. There. We're having a little bit of a graphic issue. Let me quick refresh that. There we go. In Group B here, we've got Twisted Minds, Team Falcons, Wufang, and the Great Showman. Let's take a look real quick at the rosters for Great Showman and Wufang. Just trying to find them real quick. Am I blind, man? Because I know they had a lot of changes and a lot of organization like updates for this stuff.
So, because that one is like .OA and stuff like that, that one could be a situation where they're borrowing a player from another team.
Okay, so I think also what this is
like that team right there. Yeah, that one. See? They're borrowing a player.
Yeah, and the information hasn't been totally updated with this because I think this is a China invite team. This is literally the team from China and the ones who played in the Overwatch World Cup. These are all Overwatch League caliber players. Shy, Leave, Gushui, Lengsa, and Monk. They're big. They're only fielding 5 players, so no subs. I'd say they're pretty confident, but because of generally being a Chinese team, I think it was unsure if they were coming to this tournament, and I think that's also with the name change and the affiliation aspect too. But that's what I'm assuming we're seeing from LGD OA, and I'm assuming that they're the same as Wufan here.
Yeah. Because it's like that's what I was saying before. I'm pretty sure they borrowed a player.
Yeah, and the Great Showman, I'm not too sure as far as who it's gonna be. I'm not seeing any affiliation, but that's what I was saying. There's a lot of change up in organizations and those clubs trying to jump in, some players and people making these changes. But of this, just off of vibes, because that's kind of what we have to go to. I can't quite search it. If you can, what do you think is going to be? Team Falcon seems like the obvious winner. Twisted Mind has had a rocky sort of thing, so I do think they have a shot of being number 4. Who do you think is out?
Twisted Minds. Yeah.
All right.
Big upset. The Great Showman, number 1. Just saying, they named themselves properly.
Give them the razzle dazzle.
Just to give you a head, so Wu Fang is a combination of LGD Gaming and once again esports to create their Overwatch squad.
All right, and that is the team from China, right?
Yes, that is the.
Okay.
As you can see, it says Wu Fang, and it doesn't have the other part. It's supposed to have LGD on it. Oh, it does. It's right at the end. They just changed the way it looks, so I didn't recognize it. There you go.
Right, and then that's where there's also miscommunication for the Liquidpedia sort of information here. And like this is an Overwatch League caliber sort of thing. Will it lean into their strengths? We've seen how they're able to pull off some awesome games, awesome upsets, but at the same time, are they going to be able to do it here? I do think they're strong enough to get out of group stages easily. So,
Yeah.
And then, I'm not able to search it because I have the broadcast basically on my browser here. I can bring us, but can you search up the team for the Great Showman? Which roster is
Let's
that?
see.
So we could just kind of finalize specifically. Because like Team Falcons has been like forever number 2 on the Korean scene. I don't think there's a doubt that they're going to get through unless there's some major disruption on that. Twisted Minds has been an off and on game with roster changes. Have they settled in? Have they found their niche? Have they found momentum? They did make quite a push, I think, in stage 1, but from that transition to stage 2, they had a lot of problems here.
I got it. I got
All
what
right.
they got. All right, they got some good names. Opener, support from Korea.
Which
Okay, they got top.
which team are
Go
they
ahead.
otherwise?
This is just they're just a great showman. That's
Gotcha.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, so they have Top Dragon, Opener, Color Hex, Aki New, I would assume, Lastro and Punk are their players.
Oh, okay.
Well, Lastro's technically inactive.
Gotcha. Yeah. He might be a sub player / coach, but yeah, I hear you. Okay, so Liquidpedia has him as Mkers. This is a Korean / a Australian team. Punk as a player has managed to, I guess, get in through a Face It League points. And like you've got some pretty solid Overwatch League caliber experience here between Color X, Opener, and Punk. I think Aki as well. But with that roster, with that expectation, and like just understanding, like I said, the organization differences, the changes and the names and the representation here. Now we have a clearer picture. What's your pick here? Who's getting knocked out?
I'm still saying with Twisted Minds.
Twisted Minds?
But I will recant who's going to be first. It's not going to be the Great Showman. I was joking. It's going to be Wu Fang.
I don't know, man.
I'm all in on Wu Fang.
Great Showman says number 1 right here.
Bro,
Number
like,
1.
look how many players are on Wu Fang's team.
5.
See how many players? Yeah,
Solid.
they don't even
Solid
consider
5.
getting sick. Okay? They don't consider death. They don't consider car accident, flat tire, someone's got tummy troubles.
bus ran late.
They literally thought about it and they said, not today, not this time. So just 5 players going in to destroy.
That's what I like to see. And let's see if then Group C specifically can also destroy. We have some names that are familiar and some that are not, just like previously. We're talking about Zeta Division, Bleed, ENCE, and M80. Let's break down the rosters really quick. With this, it should be a lot easier. M80 has had quite a few roster changes since some of their successes in Stage 2 NA, but their DreamHack performance was less than stellar. Tree, Spectre, Kaluge, Liar, Ultraviolet, they might sit in the Sigma, maybe Winston. I don't know. Kaluge has kind of been struggling with a Winston play, but they might be able to sit in that meta and how it plays off. But I do think Sigma is pretty strong currently in our patch notes currently. Zeta Division next up. This is another APAC region team. Flora, Alpha E, Fearless, Bernard, Violet, and Finn. All Overwatch League caliber players. A lot of experience, but also players who've been known to choke under pressure, perhaps. Some have called it, some have said it. These are solid, very talented players, and the question is, can they make the push? I believe they beat Team Falcons at one point, and they was very interesting, but I think that was also early in the season. Can they make that same fantasy sort of push that like kind come together. The meta's just right. Because I do feel like Floor getting put into like a tracer play is where he starts to struggle rather than the hit scan picks. And that might be something to see. Very solid backline with the support characters and very solid teams. Bernard is just to cover any sort of weaknesses Fearless have. But I don't think Fearless really has many. What was the other two teams here? Bleed and Ents. Well, I know Ents offhand, so we'll save them for last. But Bleed Esports coming in from a major region invite here. HVS, Ace, Yoshinori, Clear, Lumi, and Pali. And it seems that their two imports, Clear and Lumi, I think these are all tier 2 players from contenders. But it's not really a team that you would know. So it'd be interesting to see their kind of style and their performance with, you know, their region. They managed to make it here. How are they going to perform against Apex Dive, or how are they going to perform against a team like Ents, which might be a better brawl situation, etc. But last but not least in this group, we've got Ents, which we know from a lot of Overwatch views. We've got Kai Kevster, Ramon, Mir, Vestola, Rakatak, and Scaripa. This has been the Crimzo era of Ents, and it's going to be one of those teams to, like, we have to see people step up here. Moving back into the group stages, asking you the same question, and anybody out there, what do you think? Who's getting knocked out?
Bleed. Because all the cheese. Like all the cheese and like the cringy jokes that would happen, as like especially with like the trophy and stuff like that, like just putting Bleed on your trophy, like you beat him and just like, yes they do, just like at the bottom of your trophy, like I can't, like that's what I'm feeling. Like it's just all the cringe jokes will start coming out because Bleed lost. Stuff like that.
That's a funny, interesting point with it too. I think Bleed's roster might be the one that struggles with the other names, with the experience, with the groupness, but you know, rooting for them. It seems like it's easy pickings on this one, but you know, really would like to see them do some upsets, really come in strong, really have some confidence and make some moves and plays happen. So let's move into our final group D here, where we're talking about Space Station Gaming, NTMR, Fnatic, and Virtus. Let's take a look at the breakdowns real quick. All right, with Space Station, we're seeing the former London Spitfire with some additions to cover their weaknesses here. We've got Sparker, Backbone, Psycho, Hottie, Funny Astro, and Landon. Funny Astro and Psycho coming in as and they've been with the team for both stages earlier, but they're the people who are covering the weaknesses that they've seen previously, help them pull out the strategies. Funny Astro is also a one-trick. Not quite. He's flexible and other stuff, but he is probably the Lucio player. And that might be one of those easy bans, right? But you can only do it once, and it's probably going to be like Eichenwald. You're not allowed to play Lucio.
Remove Lucio from the game. He's always there. Like, always.
Yeah.
Everybody's a Lucio main.
And this specifically, I just want to touch that, you know, because they only have the two supports and like, depending on when they ban Lucio, because it's a matter of when, not if here, it'd be cool to see if they pivot Backbone into Bone Back, which was a somewhat meme, but funny. They took that DPS player, put him on support, and he rolled as Zen. And I think got player of the match a couple times that he did play on that in that off-roll situation in Overwatch League. But this might be an opportunity for that to happen with the ban system, right? Put it happen and be something to look out for. So if you're watching Space Station Gaming, watch how the bans work out and watch to see if Backbone makes his support debut in the EWC. Man, I have the memory of a goldfish today. I've got the memory of a goldfish today, so I had to check back to see what team. Okay, we're also talking about Fnatic here. Fnatic, Knife, Viper, Checkmate, Donghack, Attack, Lijigan, Izayaki. These are a lot of a lot of players with experience. I think Donghack just got Rookie of the Year this last season, and I think his tank play has stepped up, right? But we're talking about Korean team, we're talking about APAC region, we're talking about dive heavy philosophies and pride. This is a strong backline, and it's going to be interesting to see how they step up and if they can kind of push through. And this might be the group that we see the clash of styles for sure here. Just off the top of your head, Nick, we're seeing this team Fnatic, which is APAC region. They've shown they like Winston, Wrecking Ball, Doomfist more so specifically. And then we talking about Space Station Gaming. That might be an interesting matchup. Of the two matchups where Space Station is more heavy brawl and Fnatic is more heavy dive, what are your thoughts on that matchup, and what should we look out for as far as that playing out? Who do you think takes it?
All right, so like as far as Fnatic's concerned, right? Like who's their normal tank player?
Likely Donghack, and
right?
maybe more, map specific otherwise, but yeah, Donghack.
Yeah, so like I mean, like without knowing this team like deeply personally, right? This team has 7 players. First off, okay, in a tournament where people brought 5 or 6, okay, and either they have prepared multiple different like comps with different players and have gone into like scrims or scrim this out. I like personally, I think they're prepared for like bans and stuff like that. Is what a seven person squad looks like. I don't know if that's what it was beforehand, but that is one of the big advantages of going into this, having that extra player in order to. I don't want to say like completely change your game plan, but to completely throw off your opponent, thinking that they're gonna you're gonna do something and you end up just doing something else.
Well, that's a good point with the roster list here. We have 7 players. You got 3 DPS, so you can swap in projectile versus hit scan if you want double flex DPS, or you want more solid 1 versus there. You also have 2 tanks here, which covers each other's rosters. Perhaps Donghack is probably gonna be the main tank, looking at the more dive focused stuff, etc. But then in supports, you've got Lee Jae-gon and Izayaki, who are legends, especially on the Shanghai Dragons. And that's like the only role here that doesn't have that flexibility you're talking about. But I guess they're confident enough in the abilities of these 2 supports who have proven time and time again how good they are. But this would be a case where if you pressure them enough and they're not able to keep up, that might be the win condition for sure.
Yeah, just switching it out. Like, I mean, I like the thought that, thinking that every tank player that's on your team is supposed to be good at like every tank for every team comp is like super crazy. Like they play so differently most of the time. So like a Reinhardt player versus like, a Junker Queen player or something like that. It's just different, right? And being good at a champion that you like versus being like trying to get good at a champion you don't care for it's pretty rough. And it shows in your play. So having these players to swap out is super
that's a fair point. That's a very fair point. And, that also raises the question of how the patch, you're going to have the right read. If you don't have the right read going into this and you see other teams finding easier success and you want to swap, are you confident in being able to do that? Of course, with scrims, you're going to try to hedge that bet. But then not having that flexibility to be able to make that move, that decision, might cost you. And that's going to be further impacted by these pick bans. But then looking at the last 2 teams here, NTMR and Virtus. Where was I? There was I. NTR is down here. We've got Seeker, Zera, Infected, Admiral, and ZSS, which I believe is a team that has been in the tournament already, but then got dropped on the roster, so they created a second team, and they've managed to come in through points through the NA system here. There's some notable names, of course, but will they be able to coalesce with their roster of 5 here against some of these others? Maybe they have the secret sauce. Maybe they're all juice, no squeeze. They know how to run it. It'd be interesting to watch, but I think that's going to be their biggest asterisk to look out for. And what did I say the last team was? Virtus. That's
right there. Yep.
There we
go.
go.
The V-Bears.
Yeah. All right. We've got Shockwave, Cloud, Sana, Rajaro, Gala, and Kelnea. Nail? How do you say that? Nail? I apologize in retrospect here.
What country is that from? That's what
I think it's Spain. This is an EU team, and these guys got in through points. And I think this was another one where they had a couple points come in off of other rosters, and they were able to form this team to make it to the World Cup here. Another team that could have the sauce, could have the juice, but We'll have to see if they can make the adjustments to the patch. Will the patch be in their favor? Will they be able to adapt, be flexible? They do have a little bit more flexibility in DPS, but that might just mean they're looking at hit scan versus projectile, flex DPS or not, double flex healer or something, bring somebody over. But it'll be interesting. And that's kind of overall what we're looking for here. Games are going to be starting tomorrow, I believe, early in the morning, about 8 hours from now. Let's take a look.
Yeah.
11 hours from now.
There you go.
Recording. And it'll be a lot of fun to see. Nick, as a wrap up to the Overwatch Esports World Cup sort of stuff, we've talked a lot about it. Any final points you want to reiterate before we move into talking about the new support character, which is not going to be in the tournament, but is going to be coming out soon, is going to really impact the game, I'm sure. But any thoughts here about Overwatch at EWC?
No, just that, it's going to be more exciting to showcase all these players that people don't normally see. I think Overwatch is one of those things where like a lot of your fans that do watch the North American area of like Overwatch, they'll be able to branch out from this like pretty easily if they actually watch it. So.
Right, and this becomes like another Overwatch World Cup, like when at BlizzCon every year, having that competition. It's where a lot of players got to make their names, and we are seeing a lot of familiar players, but a lot of these players have been cut. A lot of these teams have been like out of nowhere kind of stuff. So this is definitely, you're right, a space where they can get on that stage at the same place and level, make a name for themselves. Even if they don't come out with the championship, they might come out with a job next season, next stage.
Yeah, that's true. Like just performing well on certain champions and stuff like that, or characters, whatever we want to call them, right? Performing well on certain ones will most likely get you scouted from another team, and like you might just get robbed right off your team for a nice paycheck. Like, and who knows? Good move for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I am interested in that. I would also like to see this pick ban system out in place because, like I said, this is the first like tournament on this size and this scale where it's doing it. There's been other tournaments that have done pick ban stuff. They've done map differential kind of things, but this combination is the first time we're seeing this here on such a large scale with this much prize pool at stake. So this caliber of player even. So it'd be really interesting to see how the coaches and the players all strategize for this situation, if it's a nothing burger or if it makes all the difference and when and how of winning and losing. But
I mean, so like one thing before we get on to the next champion is not to speak completely on the pick and ban phase again, but the way these teams operate through the pick and ban phase, like again, because the Olympic committee hasn't decided like what games or what rules will be in the Olympics, like this could be like just starting it off as like this is the start of the conversation of like how we have Overwatch rules. And because again, Saudi Arabia, the Esports World Cup is like I want to say the rock rolling down the hill for the esports in the Olympics for the most part. They're like really getting it rolling. Right. And so like this is most likely going to be how the Olympics are going to be doing it if Overwatch is in there.
Right. And there's a lot of questions when it comes to the Olympics, because I know even as far as cities that are bidding to host the Olympics have gotten fewer and farther between over the last few years, where they're already pre-selecting LA and I think Paris. Paris is this coming up. It's happening like this week, next week, but then LA is in 4 years. They've already selected who they are when they both were bidding against each other for this year's Olympics. So it'll be interesting to see how that impacts the Olympics committee's ability to decide if they're going to start choosing stuff off the bat. Like you're saying, the rock is already rolling down this hill, and how it's done here in EWC is going to be how the Olympic committee chooses to do it, what they choose to include, what they don't, how, etc. It's all going to be unfolding in front of our eyes with Overwatch, but of course with all the other games here happening at the Esports World Cup. They're very, very excellent point for you. So big round of applause and props on that one, because it is something to think about as we go further into the esports industry and the future of it. All right. I think that's a great point then to transition us into our last topic. This past weekend, there was a playtest conveniently timed around the same time as the Concord playtest, where Overwatch let players try out their new hero, Juno. Now, here's the infographic of who Juno is, but aesthetically, we're talking Jetson, Space Ranger, high mobility, fast-paced gameplay, basically. Her kit includes a Medi Blaster, primary fire. It's 12 burst healing, that's hit scan, and it will heal allies and damage enemies. Much like Anna, where it's like you don't have to swap between damage and healing. You're just going straight with the weapon. She's got abilities Pulsar Torpedoes, which caught a lot of shit when it first got announced because it's an auto lock feature. We'll break that down on how it works. We'll give you a little vision if you haven't gotten to play. You want to know a little bit more about that. But that is one that players were pretty upset about at first, a little hesitant about. Her ultimate is Orbital Ray. It summons down a giant beam that heals your teammates in the beam and also gives them damage boost. Her specific abilities are Glide Boost, which means if you hold spacebar, I'm sorry, that's her passive. Glide Boost is you hit the ability, you dash forward, and you stay at the same level, but you can move in any sort of direction like this. Basically a duck on the water. You can't go down, you can't go up. You're floating around on the water. I think we lost Nick, but I'm going to keep on keeping on here real quick. Her next ability is Hyper Ring. This is the one that's the flashiest and makes her the fastest. You send out a visual space cosmic ring that speeds you up as well as your teammates nearby. I believe there's some specificality with this. They might need to be passing through it. They might need to be in front of you. They might not. Maybe they can't be behind you, kind of thing. But as soon as you send it out, everyone gets a speed boost, and then once you go through the ring, it extends the duration / gives you a different speed boost buff. It doesn't stack, but it just extends the duration. And lastly, her passive is Martian Overboots, which means you press jump and you hover, descend like Echo or Mercy does. You know, Nick, I know you cut out for a second for the tech issue, but like, as far as me reading these abilities and seeing this stuff, what are your initial thoughts here before we jump into like some of the gameplay look and our discussion about what specifically happens?
Yeah, Blizzard does this all the time. They're super good at enhancing on champions they already have. This is like Mercy on crack. Like, I'll tell you right
Mercy,
now.
Man?
No, like the way people are gonna play her will be like kind of like an old Mercy playstyle. Like, I don't think there'll be like a tracer.
Like the high mobility sort of playstyle?
Yeah. Just like high mobility healer that just does crazy damage compared to, like, think about it. Mercy literally has to have like switch weapons in order to deal damage. Right? Like it's like this character just gets to unload. Like, oh, what am I healing? I'm dealing damage now. So that's really like what I mean.
Interesting, because like, I got a totally different vibe from that. You know, the obvious point is going to be more about Lucio because of the speed boost. Here it's the ring, the hyper ring, where you, as soon as you send it out, you get a buff. Anybody in front of you and your team gets a buff for increased speed. But then when you pass through the ring, forward or backwards, it creates that speed buff again. Surprisingly, that ability was great for disengaging. It was really, really good for disengaging. It was not as good for like engaging on stuff. I do kind of understand, because when you go into this ability, which is the glide boost, that's where, you know, you're seeing like the Mercy flexibility and the general ability for her to dash around, move around, but like she didn't really feel like you wanted to be frontline target, because her overall damage range, I think, ended up being like 35 meters before there's fall off. And that's also like an interesting point just to kind of add to this conversation before I send it off to you real quick, is that this is the first character with healing fall off. We go to 40 meters here, we shoot and damage this guy, and instead of taking 3 bursts to kill, it's like 5. So you see the fall off happens. That same fall off applies to healing. So if I were to be healing this guy, it would be taking 5-6 shots to top off a regular squishy character here.
Interesting. And like, and it's not accuracy based. Like, they're shooting 6 shots and like, you know, 3 of the shots get more, but the accuracy of the overall burst is decreased from range. Right? Is that how it's working?
there's a little bit of spread. It is all hit scan, but they fire 12 bullets in each burst, and each burst, like each 12 bullets is a hit scan moment. So if you're moving, like you might only hit 6 and miss the other 6 if they're moving, etc., which is more the feel of what you'd see. And I'm going to skip ahead into actually.
But they're reducing the healing though, right?
Yeah,
so like if I shoot 12 shots from range and I hit all 12 shots, it doesn't heal as much because it's at too far of a range.
That's the healing fall off, and that's the first character to have healing fall off. Normally we're used to damage fall off, and here she is in gameplay.
That's fine.
You know, just moving around. This is one of the first games I got to play with her. It's a single target healer. If as soon as they're maxed, the bullets will go through, like Anna kind of mindset. So that's why I also surprised on like the Mercy comparisons. The double jump with the hover boots give you a lot of mobility, but you know it is a tracking character more so, and with not so much like a beam like a Zarya or Symmetra damage. Here. This is the auto lock on right click. It will burst heal a friendly target and then give them a hot, but then also just do damage to enemy characters. Enemy characters can dip behind cover and it will hit the wall before it hits them. But with healing, it will travel through walls like Lifeweaver's bloom mechanic.
Interesting.
So here I'm trying to run in and engage with I end up being the person in the front line, and the Hanzo just murks me because the Doomfist is just off by himself and whatnot. But yeah, go ahead, Mick.
No, the healing drop off seems fine because I'll tell you right now, the people who play this character are going to be DPS and more than Morris, bro. Like just in general. It looks like it's probably, I don't know. That's the way that it looks to me. It's just it's going to be more of like a DPS healer with healing on it. But the ring, the hyper ring or whatever it's called, it doesn't look like a dive tool. It looks more like move from like safe spot to safe spot a little bit quicker. So like from right here, maybe you hyper ring in order to get around the other route, or go up the wall. Go up the stairs right there, right? Like you go straight, or you go up the stairs instead of taking the right, because you don't need the hyperloop. Does that work on projectiles?
I'm sorry, what was that? The
loop.
The hyper.
There's a loop.
It's not considered. No, it doesn't work on projectiles, and it's not considered a projectile. Like D.Va can't eat it, so like it doesn't make bullets go faster or projectiles go faster. It just works on player characters. And you can kind of see that they're all squatting there, so it maintains the buff and like it trying to get them in and engaged in the position, and like you said, in a safe position for it. But we finally take some space here. The Doom is all in by himself, while the rest of my team just struggles with this one Sigma. There you go. And then we kind of push in. The hyper ring helps rush that basically. So team coordination wise, I think it's gonna be really awesome. But I don't know. I think this character is going to be a jack of all trades, kind of like there's nothing they're really bad at. They kind of do everything pretty well with mobility. So I think it might be one that replaces Lucio or maybe they go hyper WoW comp, kind of like hyper speed rush comp or dive comp with the two.
They should really punish you. They should punish you if that becomes like the standard, or it becomes like viable with the two speed movers. That probably shouldn't.
Well, just like damage boosts, the speed is capped out. Like, so that's why, like, you know, a lot of people initially thought Lucio and Juno would be strong, but I think you can't pop both of them at the same time. But in a more coordinated situation, a more coordinated team, they pop it separately. You've got 5 players just zooming around the map almost constantly, basically. So if you have a coordinated situation in play, that might be a crazy sort of moment and team strategy.
It's an interesting character, you know, but I'll say it right now, this character is going to do more DPS than heals like on your team, man. And like you're going to be sitting there like, what is this Zen doing? What is this Juno doing right now? Like it's what you're going to see. There you go. Heard it here first.
Yeah, my hot take with that is I don't totally agree. I think that low levels are going to just aimbot their tank. They're going to heal bot their tank. So you're going to see them doing 10k healing per 10 minutes. And then I think high levels, which already have damage supports, and this is a damage support that rewards you for tracking. It's able to punish tanks, press them, especially in this age of kaiju kind of stuff. So I'm a little bit skeptical by that, like only damage kind of moment, but like I do like the versatility where then this healer doesn't have to sit there and wait for your team to do something like Mercy. They can kind of do something of their own, like a Moira or a Kiriko. And like we do know how broken Kiriko is, and I think Kiriko is broken because of the TP. Cleanse and Suzu is ridiculous, but I think it's the TP that allows her to position and really make moves here. This is her ult in. I'm pushing my team in just to kind of deal with it. I fall back probably erroneously there. I probably should have stayed with it, but it allows the team to win the fight currently and move on. But yeah.
It looks like a cool champion.
It's a lot of fun for sure, and definitely something to check out when it comes out. And I think August 20th, it's going to define the Overwatch League. Sorry, not Overwatch League meta. It's going to define the meta. At the very least in comp, by the time we get to stage 3, I think it's going to define the Overwatch esports meta for sure. Here. Is there anything you'd like to see from this champion, Nick, specifically? Would you think that we should definitely play them in a brawl comp, or would you want to see them more in that like poke dive situation? Any thoughts there?
I don't know. They would probably be like way better suited with more of a brawl comp just in general. Because as I said before, like if they're the hyperlink, not the hyperlink, the hyperloop, whatever the hyper ring. There we go.
Yeah.
The Higgs boson circle, like that one alone is for like going from like spot to spot and changing up your positioning as like a team, in order to quickly get past, like in the situations with like Lucio where they're going to move forward with the movement speed. This one is more targeted based because you can like basically say like, hey, direct your team to go this way, go that way, right? Like you're kind of leading people where they're going to go. Whereas like Lucio is just like, hey, we all have a speed buff, and if you don't stick with me, you're not coming. Like,
Right. But that's also interesting because that might also take a coordinated play, which you won't necessarily see in comp, especially when nobody's on voice, no one's calming, etc. So I would probably argue in that case, you might end up seeing her more in that poke comp. Her gun works from 35 meters, so it's like a mid-long range sort of situation. It's not a sniper, but it is one where you kind of want to take an angle like a Kiriko and kind of fall back, and maybe that's it. Maybe that's the thing that works best for her. She is something that might just fit into any sort of comp overall, and it might be a TBD to see what kind of changes or expectations kind of take from that point. But, it's a valid point that, we'll likely see Brawl a lot with her, the Hyper Ring. I do want to, like I said, add that pokiness aspect to it there, where she's more of a mid-long range healer, not an upfront healer.
No, but I mean, like she does. I don't want to say it's like it doesn't. It looks like she would just be able to spray in like really tense situations, right? And so, like maybe, like my thought that just popped in my head is maybe this is more of like a counter pick to like dive comps, just in general. Because like once the people dive in, you can get your team like separated. You could space a little bit with the hyperloop, right? Backwards or forwards. Right. And have like the spray with the healing plus the auto targeting. Plus, if anybody steps in front of the bullets at this point when you're trying to heal, they end up getting damaged anyway. So, like, I don't know if that was a good spot for that one.
Probably wasn't, but still learning the character. Overall, though, too, like just to kind of add, if the hyper ring felt really good, but it felt better in the disengagement, right? It's felt a lot easier and smoother with that disengagement. And then I have the right click there. The right click didn't seem like a mid-fight situation because it felt like the gun worked better by itself with the burst of healing. I do more healing or more damage with the burst rather than try to lock on, take the time. And like the damage, it's not negligible, but like it doesn't change her break points on like a duel. So like...
No, but it gets it hot though, right?
You get it, you engage with it, you disengage with it, you take a cheeky angle, like on a flank with your double jump, etc. Like,
I mean, with the hot is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's what I mean too. Like that's like probably more beneficial to an engage, right? You pop it as we're running in and not in the middle of a fight.
Yeah, like the beginning of the fight, and then it'll be back up, right? Like that would be mostly where I would think about it, because you're still doing the healing. Someone does take immediate burst damage on like an engage. That's why I was thinking if someone's just going to do like a dive comp, you're healing like real quick. You do that right click, it's auto targeted on your guys anyway, and you're trying to get your people space by putting down the thing. So, it could be in a brawl comp, but it most likely you probably pick it as like especially since you have the mobility to get out of dodge as a healer a little bit more effectively. So, just better mercy is what I'm saying.
I mean, that point you're making, I really like that idea where it's like counter dive, right? It's not necessarily a brawl. It's not like I'm going to stand and fight. It's that I'm going to shift around and help my team move around to counter them pouncing, to counter them on all-inning on one target, something like that. So it'll be interesting to see how this develops. The playtest went live and it's already concluded this past weekend. If you got to play Juno, Space Ranger, let us know your thoughts. How did she play? How did she feel? Is she going to need a buff? Is she going to need a nerf? There's been some mixed sentiment there, but we'll see how that goes for the safe side of Strong when they release her in the next season. Let us know on our social medias or here right in the comments. It's really appreciated. Nick, I think that kind of wraps up our topics for today. I'm going to obviously take us into our intro right now, but before I do, let's hear what your final thoughts are about either Juno or Esports World Cup, or even before that. What are we thinking before we head out there, Nick?
Juno's unlocked, right? Like I just get Juno for free now, right? Like that's all I'm thinking. It's like
that was a
huge I'll end up playing. Yeah, I'll end up. I mean, that was a crux for me, but like I would definitely end up playing Juno. Juno looks like a really, I say it all the time. Like, be careful with mobility in PvP games. Like that stuff's crazy. Like it's absolutely crazy when you put traversing stuff and doing stuff. So like, Champion looks good. It looks like it might be able to generate some weird gaps and go different places than other people might be able to. I don't know, but. It looks good. I do thoroughly enjoy the overall aesthetic of the character, the way that the moves look and everything like that. And as I said, I think it'll end up landing on like more of a reactive pick rather than a proactive pick.
Yeah, solid analysis there. Good point to make, because I did feel like that ends up being true, and people are still figuring out how to play her. My final thoughts here is like I'm really looking forward to this pick ban for Overwatch and EWC. I'm looking to see what happens with some of these other tournaments in the meantime. But my actual final thought here is during the playtest this weekend, I noticed a little bit of a setting that was updated. Let me toggle into our browser screen so you can see the full image here. I took a screenshot, and it seems, and it was kind of under the radar, Mythic Weapon Flourish was added to the settings and kind of under the radar. Nobody really talked about it. It's not a big deal, but it's something that they promised since they first announced Overwatch 2. They had cast and they could look at the weapon and see the little tag on the weapon and do a little flourish. Something they've had in other games. It's something they promised and people expected with launch. And here we are almost 2 years into Overwatch 2, and it looks like they're finally adding it. I haven't seen anybody talk about this. So my final thought is, look at this, hold them accountable, tell them it took them 2 years. Thank you. But why? Why did it take so long? I think it's coming, and it seems like it's coming for the mythic weapons they're going to start selling, which then again is another point of animosity. I'm sure next week we're going to have, or the next time we have a conversation, we'll be talking about how they scammed players and they're taking money out of their pockets kind of because mythic weapons cost money. And if I want to flourish my weapon, I can only do it if I buy stuff. So that's my final thoughts there, Nick. Any sort of addition to that before I bring us home?
Nah, Blizzard's great, isn't it? Aren't they great? Like,
right, and you totally never thought that Overwatch needed picks and bans ever, you know?
Yeah, no, I did forget about that going into the Esports World Cup. For my final thought, I am super jazzed about that. I think it could evolve, but I definitely appreciate it. Thanks.
It's gonna be a good. Yeah, it'll be a great experiment to see how it plays out.
Yeah, join us back next week to see if I get what I want for another game.
Actually, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Esports Meta. I'm going to do the wrap up right now. Thank you for joining us. If you liked this video, let the algorithms know, hitting the likes, follow. It tells them to send it to more people. We film this every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Times, live on Twitch and YouTube. You can watch us there and be a part of this podcast, comments, chats, etc. Otherwise, check us out on YouTube, our YouTube channel. We post all these there. Leave comments, leave your thoughts, discussion there, or social media if that's more your vibe. You're not really into the whole YouTube thing. I get it. We're on Twitter, we're on Threads, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, so check us out there as well. We are taking next week off, going on a bit of a vacay, so we'll see you in 2 weeks with all the latest news. We'll have a lot to talk about. Thank you for joining us today. Nick, thank you for joining me. It was great talking with you about it. A lot of good stuff to be looking forward to.
Been fun.
All right. This has been the Esports Meta. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.